Spoiler season is really starting to heat up, and yesterday we got 10 new cards for Riftbound. Now, did Darius take the spotlight with a lot of his insane support that all got revealed at once, or are there some other hidden gems to look forward to? In this video, we're going to give a quick rating to all the cards we have so far, and give my first impressions of what I think will be the best out of the batch. So, let's dive in. Up first, we got Cleave. This is a 1 energy battle trick for giving Assault 3 or +3 to an attacker. And this is very important for the Darius deck for 2 different reasons. One, it does give us a cheap power-up effect for those early units that we want to play, so they can trade into or trade up for a battlefield if we need to clear it. And then also with Darius's entire mechanic being around Legion, being able to play this card just for cost of 1 and building into another card that we want to play or a higher costed Legion card that gets an effect, this does all of that and more. So traditionally in these more aggressive strategies, we want to find some way to buff our attackers up so we can get more value out of them in the mid to late game. We're really just trying to get those last couple points, and Cleave does an amazing job of that. I think this is absolutely going to be an S tier card staple for the Darius deck itself. If you are looking forward to the more aggressive strategy and you are playing Fury, then you definitely want 3 of this card. Up next, we have Dangerous Duo, which again, another Legion style mechanic goes with Darius, but this is just a good card for itself because it is a buff with a body attached for it, and a cost of 3 energy for 3 might is still a decent spot to be in by itself, right? That real cost that you're paying for this is Legion. However, as we just talked about Cleave, and if we have Chemtech Enforcer for maybe more of the Jinx style of decks, if you want to lean a little bit more heavy on the red side, going from Chemtech Enforcer into a Dangerous Duo on your following turn and maybe like a Cleave to back it up or something is going to be really nice for pushing a ton of power. We are very quickly getting up to 6 total might, or if we play the Cleave, right, it's going to go up. Chemtech himself goes up to 4 and then gets +3 from that as well. That is enormous value that you can get off this. Now, you are going to run out of cards a little bit quickly as you're trying to line up these various Legion combos. So as I talked about in my previous video, that's where I think that Darius might struggle a little bit, even if it is more powerful up front. Jinx, in my opinion, is really going to take the cake for just getting that extra card draw turn after turn in a deck that wants to be, spamming out its hand. So I do have to rate this a little bit lower than Cleave by comparison, maybe like an A rank, but still a very nice card that I expect to find a home within the Legion package. And then, of course, we did actually get the other version of Darius. So for those who are maybe unfamiliar, or just a quick recap, the champion cards is something that you can start the game with next to your legend that you can play from that zone into your battlefield as a one-time thing. It's not like Commander where it goes back to that zone. It does go to trash after it dies, but it's really the heart and soul of what your deck wants to be doing. And now I imagine other champion units will have a little bit more variety to them and how each one of them play out. We've also seen the Misfortune one, or at least the alternate version of it, but with this we do have a direct look at Darius for both the red and yellow variants, and they both play very much of I am the big strong aggressive strategy, right, which is exactly what we want to see or expect to see from this style of deck. So Darius Executioner, Legion, when you play me, ready me, and again for playing a card before him, and then other friendly units here have +1 might. That is going to be a very interesting mechanic. Traditionally, if we are playing in this style, right, you would go to, tokens would be really good. Victor just getting a buff for his entire board. But also, if we're just really reliant on the Legion mechanic, we are most likely playing multiple units to the board anyways. So it's another way to get a little bit extra value out of that. Of course, the trade-off there is that the red Darius, whenever you play a second card in the turn, you get to +2 might him and ready him, which is really important for being able to move between battlefields and get multiple movement effects off of a turn, because you're able to, stand him on your turn, move back to base maybe, puts him exhausted, play your second card, ready him again, and then go crash 7 damage into the other battlefield, right? It's a very high mobility card that, in my opinion, will probably take it, but depending on where the rest of the tokens go, I could definitely see, our tokens or lower cost cards, I absolutely could see a place where this Darius is going to find a home. So again, might be a little bit lower, but I think there's a lot of amazing cards that we're seeing for Darius so far. Cleave definitely being the spotlight out of them, at least in this initial batch. Moving on from there, we have Arena Bar, a 3 energy gear. So this is going to be more akin to like an enchantment or an artifact that just stays in play if you've played other card games. Exhaust it, buff an exhausted friendly unit. If it doesn't have a buff, it gets +1. Now, this combos very well with both Set and technically Lee Sin as well, because we know that he's also going to care about the buff mechanic, but Set ultimately has that baked-in ability that you want to spend some of those buffs and then get to recall the unit. So having an easy way to make sure that we're re-equipping these and rebuffing our own units is going to be very, very important, and Arena Bar is going to do that for cheap. Now, the one thing that does stick out in my mind is, will we see some type of gear interaction or removal? I'm assuming so, but there's a lot of really interesting gears that got spoiled today that I think are absolutely S-tier staples in what their decks want to be doing, but I'm very curious to see what some of those other gears are that we may or may not consider as kind of more like these side pieces. So very excited for this one, very curious as well to see more of the payoff and protection with buff in general. I definitely think this is one that needs a little bit more spoilers to really know where its power level is going to be at. But again, strictly speaking for what Set wants to be doing, this is great. It gives us the exact synergy that we want with being able to get a buff token and then bring it off the unit so that we get to keep it in play. Wonderful card. Definitely expecting it to be a staple for the Set and might even get a spot in the Lee Sin deck. So at least for Set, definitely like S tier. This definitely screams like it's going to be a staple to me. And then in Lee Sin or maybe some of the other packages where you don't get as much of that buff effects, it might fall off a little bit. Now it does combo very well with the champion Lee Sin, I will acknowledge up front, but I don't think that you would ever run this card with the mindset of I'm only going to care about buffing this one specific card in my deck, right? You want something like Set, which is going to give you more versatility over the course of the entire game for all of your units. So Arena Bar, very excited to see where that one lands. Now, you know me, if you know me from the lore days, I love some silly ramp decks, and we got some dragons. Not one dragon, but 2 dragons so far, in fact. And with Herald of Scales, a 4 energy, 3 might card, your dragon's energy costs are reduced by 2 to a minimum of 1. So yes, this is going to stack, which is going to be really nice. With our Volibear Legend, it's going to allow us to get some early draw when we really need it. So especially if you're playing, or used to playing, maybe say Dragoncraft from Shadowverse, or just Druid from Hearthstone, right? Those more traditional ramp strategies, generally, we want to see more permanent ramp, like the Catalyst of Aeons card that was already spoiled. But depending on the dragons that we get later on in the set, this card could be a automatic 3 of staple just to try accelerate that plan and making sure that we're getting those dragons as early as possible on the battlefield. However, because it is going to be a little bit more risky of a card to play, a little bit more conditional, I am going to rate this one a little bit lower into a B tier until we get at least a few spoilers. It is something that I think is going to either be insanely strong. You always want to run 3 of it because it is a body and does have the reduction effect. But the answer really comes back to how many dragons are we playing and how many of them will be good. Ultimately, we do have to wait and see, but I think with Volibear's ability in the legend form, it is something that we are going to see a lot more of in the future. We just have to determine how good it's ultimately going to be. Moving on from Caitlyn, and this one truly just feels like maybe tier C for Caitlyn, right? And I only say that because we don't have a lot of context around this card. When you look at what's available in Calm or Green, there is a lot of things that we want to buff with, right? There's a lot of ways to protect some of your cards as well. However, this one mostly cares about our might and then using it on our turn to snipe off something else. Now, in Lee Sin's deck, we do have a couple ways to give buffs, so this would be a 4 might removal, and 4 might is actually a really good spot to be in, so for that, its own regard, could be fine. However, this does then compete itself with some other slots in the deck that we might want to consider, depending on if we're running Lee Sin, or depending if we're running like the Ahri deck, that it is a very big wait and see. I think from all the cards that were spoiled today, this is the one that says, like, I don't even want to rate it yet because it just feels like we're missing so much context around it, and we don't have a, like, super clear direction for where it wants to be. I do see this as a eventually good, powerful card when we start to think about the more might manipulation effects that we get. Maybe we just need a different pairing later on, but also the fact that it takes damage less. Less means it can be stuck on your base or your battlefield a little bit extra as long as you're protecting it with other cards. Again, giving those cards tank or shield or what have you. I do think Caitlyn has an ability to control the battlefield if you really get rolling with it, but it requires a little bit more setup that remains to be seen. Now, we do also have Block, which is a 2 energy spell. It is a hidden effect, which is really important for the keyword, which we'll talk about a little bit more later, but give a unit shield 3 and tank. So +3 if it's a defender, and it must be dealt damage first. This is going to be a very interesting card. I think it is just very strong for what it wants to be doing, but yes, it could go with the Ari deck because if your opponent is attacking, they already get -1 might from that. And then with this, you're getting a 4 might swing. And it really goes back to the champion Ari that says, when I hold, you score an additional point. This is going to be more focused around getting this Ari on the battlefield and just trying to find a way where you're getting additional points scored. Then you have all of these battle tricks that can help them stick around. So this is one that we definitely want to see more of the units that would go into this style of deck, but block just for the fact that it is a +3 might swing and shield. When we think about it in context of keeping around certain targets, like the Caitlyn that we just talked about, or like the Ari in this case, if we're trying to score extra points, I definitely think that this card is going to find a home. I just am curious to see how many more hidden cards that we end up getting, but I think for the energy to value ratio, I definitely am going to rate this one higher. I'm going to give it just A for the sake of it, but I have to go back through and test where some of the other calm cards are lending themselves to, because it is something that's very strong, at least what we've seen so far. Now, one that is either going to be the S tier, the biggest reveal that we're going to see in this entire video that we're doing today, or it's going to fall off horribly short, is Ekko. And this is a 5 energy accelerate, so you can give it haste or pseudo haste, where it comes in the battlefield, you can make it active and then go capture a battlefield immediately. But what's really important is the death knell effect, recycle me to ready your runes. So there are going to be turns where you can line up this card with some type of self-removal effect, like Hidden Blade, like the call effect that we've seen previously, to conquer a battlefield, tap all of your runes, tap out completely, do whatever you want to do, sacrifice it, get all of your runes back, and then go into another massive play. This is something that does require a little bit more of a setup, which is why I say that it is either going to be insane or unplayable. We'll have to figure out which side it leans on. But the power swing, as long as you have the card draw to support it, that you're getting to ready all of your runes and make big plays again, this has insane potential. So, S tier for potential, but where it actually lands, we definitely need to see more of the reveals themselves. Again, 5 energy, 5 might, decent spot to be. It also puts your opponent in a really awkward spot if you are playing like the Ari deck to have Mind and Calm. If I tap out and you kill this guy and I just get all my runes back to play more effects, right? You're gonna have a very hard time of conquering the other battlefield. Or maybe I just held up 2 and then you think I can't save it, or I just let it die and have more removal after that, right? It puts a very interesting puzzle in front of your opponent and how they want to navigate the turn. But ultimately, if you can keep this card around for a big combo turn, your opponent doesn't just like super mega death rocket it or just have any type of removal for it, it can lead to some pretty crazy stuff. But you put this on the board, it is going to be public enemy number 1, because your opponent is not going to want you to untap with this thing and get the most value out of it. So Ekko, I'm really curious to see where this one's going to land. Again, I think it definitely has the highest potential from a ramp up and get to do what you want to do perspective, but we got to see more of the late game Mind and probably Calm cards to go with this to really get the most value out of it. Now, the one that I want him to be good. I want him to be so good, but is definitely a lot lower on my list right now, is Heimerdinger. So it's a 3 energy, 1 power, so you do have to recycle a rune, and 3 might, but he has the tap ability of all friendly legends, units, and gears, which is a lot right now, to be fair, and in theory is going to combo well with various Teemo or other gear cards that we've seen that want to potentially go in the Teemo deck. But are we really spending a unit slot to get the most value out of it, right? This card itself, there has to be more. There has to be something else that this card really wants to combo with to get the most value out of it, because the effect can be really strong, but unfortunately, when we consider things like Pack of Wonders as the main thing that we could really get value out of with this, it does fall a little bit short. So unfortunately, I've seen too many times where Heimerdinger just doesn't get the love that he deserves in card games. You think back to lore, but this one I'm definitely gonna have to rate like C tier for now. We really need a lot more support for this. We got to figure out what that missing piece is. And ultimately, it may or may not come. So hopefully like 2 or 3 videos from now, we'll come back and we'll be like, hey, this is awesome. Really excited for Heimerdinger, right? Right now, no, I'm sorry. It's got to go to the bottom of the barrel. Now, that said, the last card and my favorite card by a mile, not biased at all, is Mushroom Pouch, a 2 energy gear that is the exact card that we wanted for Teemo. We talked about the set enabler being like an automatic S tier. This one, to me, as long as it lines up with the direction that it wants to go, S tier, right? One of the main issues with Hidden is that you can only play it at a battlefield you control, and if you lose that, it might not have the exact effect that you want. So you are taking a little bit of a gamble to make sure you're getting the most value out of that hidden card, so you really do need to be rewarded for playing these cards in a very specific sequence, and Mushroom Pouch is going to do exactly that. And when we start to consider things like the signature spell from Teemo and how this is going to combo well together, the combos and potential is insane for this deck to pop off. Now, admittedly, we are still waiting for a couple, hidden cards to really push Teemo that little extra bit that we get, but I guarantee you, as soon as we get like 1 or 2 more days of spoilers, I am going to be building this deck first, and I cannot wait to get my Mushroom Pouches online and show the absolute terror that Teemo can be in getting a ton of card draw and a ton of battlefield tricks that our opponents have to dodge. So again, for me, SS tier, I think this is the biggest winner from a archetype supporting card of this set. But again, I think Darius did get a lot of really good support that makes it a very clear indication of why it's probably going to be one of, if not the strongest day one deck, as people are starting to figure out the meta. So with that out of the way, let me know your thoughts. What is your favorite card from today's spoilers? Was I a little unfair on Heimerdinger, or are you equally excited about Teemo and getting the key card that we were looking for? Definitely let me know down below. But until the next spoiler video, my friends, stay safe, stay hydrated, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.
We'll be right back.